So, hey, welcome back to the Aerospace Executive Podcast. I'm thrilled today to have a good friend, Dave Butler. David is with CTech Consulting. CTech's out of Atlanta. And first got introduced, we got introduced a little over a year ago, right? And
Right.
I loved your background. So David is an impressive executive. He's been with not numerous, but you've been with some high performance companies, including your VP of HR or senior VP of HR at Mesa Airlines. You're with Hewlett Packard. But the most interesting thing you've done is a lot of research in peak performance,
Right.
helping
Right.
athletes, Navy SEALs, military special forces take their performance to the next level. You're an elite athlete yourself, a fifth degree black belt, world champion there. So tell me this. So it's all about peak performance. And what is the one thing that,
Right.
What do peak performers all have in common? What do they?
What do they have? I think that, it's a great question. So a lot of my doctoral research has been in the issue, in the area of peak performance, right? So what distinguishes peak performers and what are some of the key characteristics? And I think, that one of the key characteristics that I have found is this issue of being resilient, right? So no matter where you are in your performance journey, there's going to be adversity, there's going to be challenges. And so the issue of peak performers, whether you're coming back from a difficult competition, whether you're coming back from a hard deployment, or whether as a leader, you're just going through a hard cycle in your business, the question is, how do you bounce back from that challenge and that trial in a way in which you're able to engage again, fully engage? And so it's not just putting your head down and grinding through something, although that's part of it. It's being able to bounce back with some enthusiasm, being able to bounce back with excitement and ready to engage whatever you're doing as fully as you were before the trial.
So you're a world champion martial arts athlete, fifth degree black belt. Is that right?
Right.
You've trained. So if you're training an athlete, or if you're, it's New Year's. It's the New Year. It's as we were saying, the most crowded day of the gym was like yesterday. People who are really taking their game to the next level, can they be trained to do that? Can they really be trained to develop that mental toughness that they need? And is it really something? How does somebody, if somebody says, "Hey, I want to be more mentally tough," or "I really want to take it to that next level," what are the steps that they do to kind of get them there?
Sure. Well, Craig, like anything else, resilience and mental toughness is like a muscle that you have to train, right? It's a habit that you get into. And part of that is, again, how do you embrace diversity, right? And how do you look at that? So the reason why people drop out of their New Year's resolutions, the reason why Special Forces folks drop out of their training is because the cost benefit analysis is that the cost of what they're doing is not worth at the moment the end result, right? And so what I always tell people is there's two kinds of thoughts, right? There's the pain of discipline and there's a pain of regret, meaning that in our life, there's always a pain we're going through of discipline, making them to the gym, going through the regimen, whatever we're doing. And then there's a pain of regret, right, that we think about because we didn't do that. And that's why we have so many people doing the same New Year's resolutions again and again and again, because there's a sense of regret, right? And so what people don't do is they don't stick to it long enough, right? They don't persevere long enough. And part of this issue of mental toughness is understanding that there's a long-term benefit and a short-term pain involved in order to achieve what you want to achieve.
So do you train like in short bursts, or do you focus and you say, do people who perform to elite levels, do they look at things in the short term and say, hey, I'm going to get from here to here today, and then,
Right.
and then erase it, so that they're not thinking about the next 100 push-ups they have to do, or the next mile they have to run, or the next project they have to take on at work?
Right. A thing that we teach people is this issue of mindfulness, and a lot of people, Craig, think of mindfulness as some kind of Eastern meditation philosophy, and there's a piece of that in there, right? But mindfulness is the ability to look at the present moment in a non-judgmental way. So many times, in order to move through something, you have to be mindful of where you are today and where you are presently. And so what we do is we help people in this issue of mindfulness. For example, one of the things that we work with the collegiate wrestlers, and we work with them on this issue of focus, Focus. And what that's about is the F is, forget, the O is organize, C is concentrate, U is unwind, and S is step. So let's say you're a wrestler and you're behind, and there's a move that you did, and you're walking back to the center of the mat. Everybody is yelling at you, hey, do this, do that, and you're running in your reel what you just did. What we tell folks is to focus. Forget what happened. That's over. And then organize your thoughts. Concentrate on your next step. Unwind. Take a deep breath, whatever you have to do to relax, and then step into whatever you have to do. And so that could be in like anything we do, right? And so mindfulness is letting go of what we did. And here's a really prime example. So we were working with a kicker of a professional football team, right? And conventional wisdom always says, kind of forget what happened, run through this thing in your mind, and that's going to work. Well, this kicker was in a big game and kicked 2 bad field goals. So we were working with the kicker, and everyone was saying, hey, just forget about it, think positively, you'll be okay. Well, when that kicker was going to get up, what was that kicker going to be thinking about? The last 2 kicks that they missed. And no matter how much they were saying, don't think about it, they're going to think about it. And that's going to cause that kick probably to go off and do another bad kick. So mindfulness is going to the kicker and saying, hey, look, man, you had a kick that wasn't bad or good. It was off target, right? You know what you have to do. You're able to kick. So what you have to do is be mindful of the present moment, rely on your training, and don't worry about what happened in the past. Look at it now and just do it. And typically what happened was the kicker was successful, right? Because they didn't try to forget what happened. They just looked at it in a way that was non-judgmental. So mindfulness is a key part of resiliency. It's able to look at where you are and not dwell on your mistakes, right? But be fully present. Classic example is this, right? So you are thinking about work, and you had a bad day at work. So you come home, and all you're doing is running through your mind the real what you should have done in that meeting, what you should have said in that meeting. And all the while, maybe your significant other or your kids are trying to engage with you, but you're not engaged with them. So you're missing the moment because you're still focused on what happened in the past. So a person who's mindful says, okay, something happened, but in this moment, I need to engage with my friends, my family, or whatever I'm doing, because that's what's important. And that's part of this issue of resiliency.
So
being mindful.
Just kind of being mindful of where you are now, and,
Right. But that's a lot harder said than done, because our tendency is to try to relive that moment and try to change that moment in our mind. But we know we can't do that, right? And so resilient leaders and resilient people know that they're going to make mistakes, and that's part of the process. But they're able to bounce back because they see adversity as something that's necessary. For example, Craig, like we wear these these like little wristbands, right? And we give them out to our military guys, and it's kind of embrace the suck, right? Life, this really, really sucks, and this is hard. I put my head down, I'm going to get through it. But we give them out and tell people that embracing the suck, the things that really are hard, is really what you need to grow, so that there's a sense that adversity is a positive thing, right? So resilient people see adversity as something not to be, not to be ignored or hope it never comes your way, but it's part of the process. And you kind of embrace it, because through adversity, you become more resilient. You become more mentally tough.
Yeah, no, it's like everybody says, you don't learn from your victories, you learn from your mistakes. And the difference between an amateur and a professional is probably the professional has failed more times than the amateur has ever tried.
Probably. Yeah.
But going to the kicker story, it's funny. Local guy here, a guy named Connor Barth, was an NFL kicker, and he was great. He was great down at Tampa Bay until he blew his ACL out. And then he healed up, and he was kind of a journeyman, goes to Chicago, and Chicago's a tough place.
Right.
Missed a couple kicks. Some were his, it's like, hey, look, some were just bad breaks. And then he missed one badly. And I don't know if he lost all his confidence, but he's a great guy. He's terrific, but
right.
The last kick literally just kind of ruined his career
deal.
And confidence.
But you know what? I would argue that he knows how to kick, right? And that he probably has kicked within that distance many times. But mentally, it got in his head, right? And so that caused some kind of micro change in the way he kicked, which caused probably that ball to be shanked and miss the goal. But he knows how to kick. He knows how to do that mechanically. And so if you're not in your head right, you're not able to trust your training.
Well, golfers are the same way. I mean, how much of golf is mental and how much is physical? I mean, you're hitting a little white ball with a golf club, but in the NBA, when you're shooting free throws, the crowd is, yelling and screaming, and they're waving behind the backboard. And, on the golf course, everybody has to stay, wildly quiet.
Right.
But, so it really is so much mental. Much more mental than physical. But you're working with companies, and you're helping them try to get to the next level. So if I'm a leader of an operation or a CEO, what am I telling my people to constantly get them to have mindfulness and focus? It's not just work, family. There's a whole lot of mom and dad, kids. There's a whole lot of issues going on in people's lives, and how can I teach them to be the best they can be while at work and not worry about work when they're at home?
Right. That's a great question. One of the things that's interesting here at CTEC is what was really attractive to me, Craig, is that there's an environment in which failure is allowed. It's not this, it's necessarily okay, but it's allowed. And it's knowing that in order for peak performers to push the envelope, you have to, that there's going to be failures, that, we're not always going to meet our targets. Right. And so, what we do when we work with organizations is to help them understand that the culture is really important to foster, resilience. If folks know that, making a mistake won't be the end of their career, that yes, we need to talk about it. We need to process it, right? So that we can figure out what went wrong, but we want you to bounce back from that. We believe in you. We believe in your training. We believe in what you bring and your contributions, that we want to provide an environment in which you can bounce back and be fully contributing, even though you made that error, right? So the environment has to be conducive to that. And then I think that leaders need to spend time sharpening their leadership saw, right? Leaders need to understand that their competencies really dictate their success, right? So many times we look at leaders and we simply say, did you meet the bottom line? You know, we're looking only at the business performance metrics. But a leader, like in my organization, what I tell people is how they lead is very important as what they do. And so within an organization, if we're talking about resiliency, it means that we put in place a way in which leaders can fail and recover. And we have a mentoring program. We have a way in which leaders can be mentored and somebody can come around them to say, hey, look, this is what you need to do to improve. So you're having a difficulty in this area. This is what you need to do to kind of overcome that. And so that partnership, that way in which leaders mentor and kind of come alongside other leaders is a real important piece of an organization building kind of the resilience competency within their leaders.
Well, one of the things, I know you work with a lot of the special forces in the military. And one of the things that makes them really special and really good at what they do is not hey, only 10% of the people make it and all the physical challenges they have to go through to get there. It's once they're there, they train, just like an NBA team trains and trains and trains, and they know how each is going to act. They know how, they know the strengths and weaknesses of each teams. And that's one thing that I've always been kind of critical about in America, corporate America, is that teams don't really, they just do. They don't really train. Or a sales training event is a one-day rah-rah in Hawaii, where they bring in a couple speakers, everybody goes home motivated for 24 hours, and then they forget about everything and it's back to the grind. Exactly.
Kind of to that point, a thing about a special forces team is it's a huge issue of trust. In that there is a trust that is marrow deep in them, that they know how their teammates are going to respond, and they trust that response, right? And it's because they've trained together, and there's a trust in the other person's ability to do their job. And so what's missing from organizations many times is that the trust is surface deep, and that underneath is a lot of churn and a lot of distrust. And so one thing that we forget is that we judge what we do by our intent. Everyone else judges what we do by our behavior. So my intent could be to be a good husband, but if I do things in which my behavior is different, my wife says, well, gosh, you said you'd be home at 7:30 for dinner, but you stayed at the gym and came home at 9:30, right? I mean, so, or if my intent is to be a good father, but if I don't do things with my kids and I break my commitments, my behavior says something else. And so what happens in an organization is that if the intent of an organization or the intent of a leader is to have good leaders and strong leaders and leaders that are resilient and mentally tough, that the behavior of the organization really has to provide a model for that. It doesn't matter what the intent is. And so you're exactly right. And so one of the things that people always do is try to motivate others. So when I'm at an organization, Craig, I always ask people, like, who believes in who's ever seen a motivational speaker? And everybody raises their hand. And then I say to them, there's no such thing as a motivational speaker. And they all fight with me, and I go, there isn't. There's only a such thing as an inspirational speaker who can light a spark in someone who can then motivate themselves, right? You cannot motivate anybody. And leaders need to create an environment which the spark in the individual are lit. They understand and can find their passion. They understand their value, and we're constantly moving with that spark. That then creates the motivation for people to exceed and provides the motivation for people to continue. I mean, right? So like all of us can think about, like in the physical realm, that trainer that created inspiration, or we watched the video of the person that had all these odds and that inspired us to do something. And so like organizations need to look at inspirational leadership, and they need to have leadership that inspires your people, leaders whose behavior matches the intent of the organization. All those are really crucial in order for an organization really to create an environment where the trust and and the ability to succeed is not just surface deep.
Yeah, no. And, look, it's all, a lot of it's politics, people trying to climb corporate ladders or trying to get to a place.
Right.
And I'm all about, hey, look, results don't come on the other guy's failures. Results come on individual achievements. So,
Right.
if you're pointing the finger at the other guy or girl and saying, hey, they sucked, promote me. Well, let's put them aside. Let's come back to you and say, what did you do today? Yeah. Show me your daily greatness today.
Right. Yeah. And I think to that point is that in an organization, look, unless you're selling, widgets, and even you are selling widgets, the most expensive part and the most important part of an organization are its people. Right. Mm-hmm. And so like, I'm a wrestling coach, so I'm not about saying that you're good just to make you feel good. I'm not about the participation trophy, right? I'm about if you want to be a good wrestler, you have to go out there and do the work. And so, but within that, I think that what's important is that as a leader, as a coach, I'm charged to inspire the people within my sphere of influence, to find out what motivates them, and to model that. Okay, look at when you look at something like BUD/S, which is a Navy SEAL training. Think of all the people that come in, all they've dreamed about was becoming a Navy SEAL, right? So they've trained. They're in the best shape of their lives. They passed the PST, which is the physical standards test, which is tough in and of itself. Then they go to Navy boot camp. Then they go to 8 weeks of pre-BUD/S in Chicago. And so now they're having 8 weeks of doing everything physically they're going to do in Coronado, right? They get to Coronado. That's all they've dreamed about. Why is it that all those guys drop out? It's because mentally the cost is not worth it to them. And that's what resilience does. It separates those who say, I'm going to stay the course. It's the grit, right? The grit means that when there's an opportunity to quit, I stay to the task. That's grit. And that is a fundamental part of resilience. Leaders who don't give up on their people, who don't give up on the process, they stay the course, and they say that the long-term gain is better than the short-term pain.
Yeah. I remember being in officer candidate school and getting the crap kicked out of me, and it was really easy to quit. And one day I looked in the mirror. I'm like, I can't quit.
You can't.
I got here. It took me it was too hard, too long to get here. And then I looked at my haircut.
Absolutely.
And I got this really bad haircut. And I'm like, I cannot imagine going home and looking at my dad and saying, I quit. And then looking in the mirror for the next 6 months with a really bad haircut going, all I got for this is to show for it is this.
Yeah, there was something that caused you to say, hey, I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to get through it. And look, you got through it. And so, but part of what we do with folks is when they come back from a tough deployment, right? When they come back and they had something happen. And then, so how do you get a leader to come back and lead their unit just as well as they did before, lead their squad? How do you get a leader in an organization who had a bad quarter, who had something bad, and then get them to come back and rebound as much as they work for it? That's the big part of it, is to have leaders rebound and embrace with enthusiasm and excitement whatever they're doing. And that's the issue of resiliency, right? To rebound and come back and go back out there and do it again.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in, look, I'll use the sports analogy. If the kicker misses the field goal in the last 1 second of the game, they're down by 2 points, field goal wins it. If he misses, he loses it. I'm of the opinion that, hey, you can't put everything on the kicker. It was the entire team that got, it was the entire team that got the kicker to this point. And everybody in the game had triumphs. Everybody in the game had failures. And at that point, everybody's got to rally around and go, all right, where did we fail as a team?
Right.
Where did we do great as a team? What could we do better the next time so that we're not, kicking field goals with 1 second left on the game? And, pushing this
But,
guy.
to the other point, though, that kicker has one job, right? Yep. That kicker's one job is to get the ball between the deal. That's his job. He's being paid for that. He's not paid to run, pass. He's paid to kick, right?
Right.
And so the issue is that when you don't do your one job, right, and you mess up, how do you respond back so you can do it again and not have the same result, right?
I got you.
And so, you know what I'm saying? And so everyone has their job to do. So the deal is, look, if you're a parent, no one else is going to replace you. You have one job, and that's your job. So, but you're not going to do it perfectly. So when you do mess up, maybe you break a promise or some words come out of your mouth that are kind of tough for your kids. How do you then rebound from that, continue to be a parent, and continue to say, okay, how do I rebound from that, and continue to put that in the past in a non-judgmental way, but be present with my kids now as I do my thing, or my employees, or whatever the circumstance is.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's like you got one job, and yes, there's a lot, they're paying you a lot of money to do your one job. And, everybody, look, 100%, probably not. 90%. Yeah. We, you miss 1 out of 10, we'll have a chat. 2 out of 10, we'll have a chat. Right. So, all right. So here we go. Let's take it to the people that listen. A lot of folks are stuck. It's January 2020. It's a new decade. They're stuck. They're moving down a path, or how do they get out of it? How do they start to say, today is the day I really start to change? And what are the without overwhelming themselves, what do they do? What do they do tomorrow when they wake up in the morning? And what's the commitment they make to themselves?
Sure. Well, first of all, there's a lot of people that say, hey, I'm stuck. So being stuck is negative, right? I've done something to be stuck. And the first thing they need to do is, I think, be patient and don't be hard on themselves and saying, hey, look, it's a process. And the fact that you want to continue and get unstuck is a positive thing. So folks need to be patient with themselves and with their own progress. And then I think that people need to realize that life is not meant to be done alone. People are meant to be in community, right? Whether it's a team, whether it's a squad, whatever it is. And so what that person needs to do is find people around him or her to help them to move forward, right? Who can serve as inspirational models, who can serve as accountability folks, and give them the techniques they need, and can work with and partner with them. So people don't do resolutions because they try to do it by themselves.
Right.
And it's very hard to do it by yourself, right? Because if you do it by yourself, you would have done it before, right? Yep. So it's really hard to lead a team by yourself. It's hard to be a leader in an organization by yourself. So I would tell them, find people around you who you respect, who can partner with you to journey, who can help you get unstuck.
Right.
Okay. And then that's a real key part of it. And then I think this may sound kind of weird a little bit, but I think that a big part of being unstuck is this issue of gratitude. It's a step back, and instead of thinking about all the things that you're not good at or you messed up, is to have a sense of gratitude of what you do have. Well, by saying, hey, look, I haven't been to the gym, but guess what? I could go to the gym. There are people who can't do that, and so I think that gratitude begins to take this issue off of ourselves and onto a bigger picture. And it helps us refocus where we're at. It helps us to begin to say, hey, maybe, I could take somebody with me to the gym, or maybe I can do whatever it takes to, to help somebody else. But I'm grateful for what I have. And that really helps people to get unstuck, right? So I messed up at work, or I'm trying to be a better this. Well, be grateful that you have a job, that your company believes in you, that you have something, and you know what I mean? Gratitude really unsticks a lot of our self-centeredness, which really stops us from being, from our forward progress.
Yeah, no, it's the negative emotions feed on themselves.
Right.
Negativity feeds on negativity, feeds on negativity. And you think about positive energy radiates. You're grateful, you're positive, people pick up on that. They want to magnetize to that. And, it's amazing what, I think one of the most, my daughter is 18 now, but when she was 7, she was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. And it's pretty devastating. It's a devastating diagnosis to a young kid. Now you got to get shots, or you're going to be on an insulin pump or the rest of your life. And, we as a family rallied around her. All the junk food out of the house, all the, the stuff that's going to mess her up out of the house.
Right.
But it's amazing to me what, she brings this positive energy everywhere she goes with her, and people just gravitate, towards her. I mean, I wish I could be as positive. She's so positive about everything. It's like, I wish I could, that's my personal experience. I'm like, damn, I wish I could be that positive.
Well, we're kind of wired in a way a little bit, but like, for your listeners, let me just tell them kind of where I come from so they understand that I'm not talking in a vacuum, right? So, in 2013, I was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. So I've been working all my life, I was in good health, bam, that came. And then in 2018, my cancer came back. So I had to go through radiation again, and I had to stop. I do all this hormone deals. In the middle of this, I had also started a new consulting company. And so I was wrestling through this. And then, a year ago, they discovered this abnormality in my back. So I've been through back surgeries, and it's hard to walk. It's hard to get up. You're in pain all the time. And then it turns out that just this year, they found this abnormality in my heart valve where I'm just going through open heart surgery. So I still have cancer and back issues, open heart surgery, but through that, I believe that I've learned to appreciate what I do have, right? So I'm still working out, I'm still helping people, I'm still doing my job, but I've taken those trials and those challenges that are very real to me, right? Because I can't do a lot of things I like to do. I can't hike, I can't do things. But I believe that there's a new season. So even though I have all those, I still believe, Craig, that my best years are ahead of me. That this is where I'm at, So I understand adversity. I understand mindfulness. I understand that things come our way, but how we embrace those trials makes all the difference.
Yeah, no, I think that's it's negativity feeds on negativity, positivity feeds on positive. And it's like, it's just life, that's it. And it's like, that was yesterday. Tomorrow's a new day. What are we going to do tomorrow to make it great?
That's right. And listen, man, the reason we're still here is because there's plans for us. Negativity is like pirates attacking you, right? Pirates never attack ships traveling in the company of other ships. They only attack ships that are traveling alone, right? And, if you're in the military, you understand that one is none and 2 is 1, right? In other words, there's a power in being together. There's a power of team. And so if you want to get unstuck, find people around you who are positive, who are struggling, and when you're struggle, spend time with them, embrace them, get a community. That's going to help you. Be mindful of where you are. What happened, happened. Learn from it, but don't let that ruin the moment that you're in today. And the trials that you have, there's always someone who's worse off. Let me tell you just a quick example. I was fighting with my oncologist when my cancer came back about a radiation treatment that was 6 months long, right? She wanted it longer, I wanted it shorter, but all it was I needed to do it for 6 months. Right. Okay. Well, when I was doing it, there were people in the cancer center who were trying to get 6 months of life.
Right.
They were trying to live for 6 more months. I was kind of whining because this treatment was going to be for 6 months, And so everything is about being in perspective, right? It's about being in perspective, and that helps you then to become resilient, and it helps you to overcome mistakes. And it happens all the time for me here at work, and I have to sit back and think about it and be mindful and push forward. And so, but it's a big part of our ability as leaders to create that environment for others, to live that for ourselves. And I think it makes all the difference in kind of how creating an environment in which people feel inspired to do their best.
There you go. Well, how about we leave it at that and you come back on in a couple months?
Man, I got a lot to share with you about other things. Thanks, my friend. All right.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you.
You bet.